Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hello, I am JKL, aka Yellow.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Awesome. I am originally from Denver, Colorado. Live in Portland now. I've been making music my whole life. I've been playing guitar since I was a kid.
Gotcha. And what brought you out here from Denver?
I visited here when I was maybe 10 years old, and I
just fell in love with the place.
Yeah, I loved the greenery, and that's about all I remembered from my trip out here. And when I was deciding to leave Denver, that was good enough reason for me to come here.
Hell yeah, no, I dig that. And then what got you started in music initially?
I think just my parents were big music fans, and I have some family that plays music, so it just sort of, I don't know.
It's just always been around.
There was not really anything else for me to do. It was very natural for me, and I've always enjoyed singing and writing, and my parents got me into guitar lessons for a while, which didn't
quite take.
Yeah, I learned some stuff, but then it became I grew frustrated with playing guitar because it felt I didn't like the structure of how I was being taught. And then I stopped playing guitar. I stopped playing guitar for basically throughout all of high school, and then picked it back up once I started going to college.
Oh, okay.
And from there I've just been playing more and more and making more music.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead and talk about what you're doing with music now in just a moment. But before we officially get into what you do today, I have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on.
Yeah.
And this first one, it's one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Ooh. That's a good question. Me and my dad used to do a lot of, we would go to the library and make our own CDs.
Okay.
So that, I don't think I bought an album until I was in high school, I think. And that album, I think the first album I bought was Taboo by Denzel Curry.
Oh, damn. Okay. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, which is still one of my favorite albums to this day.
I mean, shout out Denzel Curry. I mean, everything he does is just so good.
He is extremely consistent.
Very much.
Yeah, no, he's awesome.
That's a super solid choice.
Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was specifically one you wanted to go to? So you saw it was happening, got tickets and went to it.
It was, that answer might also be Denzel Curry in high school.
Okay.
I went and saw him. I packed it it was me and like 6 of my friends. We packed into my tiny little Buick and we all rode out there together. I had gone to a bunch of concerts when I was younger.
Yeah.
It was bands my parents liked.
No,
obviously they were buying, but that was one that I definitely made the choice. Like, I have to go to this. I have to go see this.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome. It was great.
I can only imagine. Who did he like perform with?
Oh, God, that's a great question. I don't even remember.
That's all right. Hey, I mean, I'm sure you did a great job regardless.
Yeah.
And just because you're from Colorado, I have to ask, have you ever been to Red Rocks?
I have a couple times.
Is it as cool as everybody says it is?
It is a very cool.
Hell yeah.
It is a very cool place. I've actually done, I know, like the Denver Nuggets, and they do some other like training programs there, but I've actually done like a workout program running up and down the steps.
Oh, damn.
In like the 95-degree summer heat.
Oof, nothing good to that.
It's awful.
Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine.
But it's gorgeous. It's a really cool place. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
And before we officially get into it, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
Yeah, honestly, it was, I was in college. I moved away to a college where I didn't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I, excuse me. And I started getting back into music when I was there. And I was sort of like half-assing it, just sort of doing it for fun. And I had a friend at the time who he and I would work on music virtually and like talk about music constantly with each other. And I just sort of sent him like a jokey song, like I was just fucking around on. And he told me that he wished I would take it more seriously, because he told me, I know that you are like a talented writer and I know that you could make really cool stuff. I just wish that you would actually try.
Oh, damn.
And that sort of like, it caught me off guard and it like straightened me up. I was like, oh, it, especially like if he feels comfortable enough to tell me that
in
my face, like he's got a point. And from there, I then started to look inward and be like, what actually do I want to talk about? What emotions have I been masking with nonchalantness and humor that I could actually benefit from confronting?
Interesting. Well, that is definitely a very defining moment for sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to that friend.
Yeah.
But now let's go ahead and let's get on into you in the present day.
Yeah.
We are going to knock out a super easy one first. How'd you pick the name?
The name, so I'll start with the second half first because it's a bit of a quicker explanation, but yellow is my favorite color.
Oh, easy enough.
And that's about it. But the first half of the name came, JKL. I've always been a big fan of like ancient mythology, like ancient Greek mythology and Egyptian mythology in specific. And for some reason, I just attached to the god Anubis, who's a jackal.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, same with the latter half of my name, I cut out all the vowels and it's JKL, aka yellow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you have two names, but it's one name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I need to shorthand it, I just tell people you could just call me Yellow.
Fair.
It's easier because it can be a bit of a mouthful.
See, I figured you would make it J and just take the first letters of all three of them.
I do. Some people call me either like J or L.
Oh, okay.
Shorthand.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, I dig that, and I think it's cool because even though there's a bit going on, but none of it's hard to remember. And I think that kind of goes a long way towards being like, it's clearly a unique name. It's an abstract name.
Definitely.
But it's still like simple enough just by design.
Mm-hmm.
So I dig that for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process. Now do you do all the production for your music as well?
I do.
Okay.
I'm almost entirely self-produced, self-instrumentized.
Yeah.
Too.
So then how do you go about getting a track started?
I spend a lot of time just making beats.
Mm-hmm. What do you use?
I use FL Studio.
Oh, we're gonna edit that to say Ableton. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
I just spend hours upon hours making beats, and sometimes I'll make a cool one, and I'll just save it to my phone, and I'll just listen to it when I'm on my breaks at work. I just listen and listen and listen until I get the urge to write something on it. And sometimes I make a beat that is really cool, and in the moment as I'm making it, I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait to write something on this. Like, this beat is so cool. And it never happens.
Yeah.
And then I make other ones that it sparks interest. But I think something that's interesting that I've noticed about my process is it doesn't really work for me, like making a beat actively and then like finishing the skeleton of it and then starting to write on it immediately. I need to have it and then sit with it and digest the instrumental itself before being able to dive in and.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's never like just a continuous start to finish experience.
No, never.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the shortest amount of time that you've like sat on a beat before you like figured out the words?
Oh, I have a project out, an EP called Leaves of Grass, that when I made that, I had just dropped an album under a different alias, and a couple months later, I wanted to release more music. And so it was a 2-week period where I said, I'm going to make a whole EP and then drop it.
Okay.
And so I made, I think it's 6 songs. And all of those I made within that 2-week period. And that's probably the fastest turnaround on things that I've done. That, like that EP, I still think it has its moments, but I definitely don't. It's not my favorite thing I've ever made.
No. Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting exercise, just like making music within a window of time, because I think especially in today's music, like with the ability to like make everything at home and like work on things for endless hours because it's just right there.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people spend too much time refining sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of those, there doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to just be perceived.
Yeah.
And so like having those windows to where it's like, yes, like, and even I think some of the practices releasing it, even though you wouldn't deem it perfect.
Yeah.
And just letting it exist in the world, because then that's just a good way to learn to let stuff out. And that like, then you have to like learn how to make decisions sooner. Like I can't find this project and I'm so sad, but I had a project that it was a 30-day project. Like I was going to work on the song every day for 30 days and it had to be a minimum of 30 minutes. So even if I had nothing to put down, I had to sit there for 30 minutes and I had to do things with it. And then at the end of 30 days, I like finalized it.
Yeah.
And this was long before like, I think like even SoundCloud was like actively a thing. So I like didn't end up having anywhere to put it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't exist on the internet now.
Oh man.
But like, it was one of those things where like by the end of it, this song was like 7.5 minutes long. It had like 8 different parts to it. At one point I like took a speech and like stuck it in it as part of it. But it was like, it stopped being a song. It started being more of like a composition.
Yeah.
And from that, I learned how to make music less linear. That was fun for me. So. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So we're going to get back into it. And I guess as far as your music goes, how long does it usually take you to get comfortable to the point where you can perform a track?
Ooh, I experienced this very recently because I just played a couple shows earlier this month. And before the first show, I made a song. Maybe I like finished the first mix on it, like a little bit less than a week, maybe 5 days before that show. And I tried to perform it, and like a third of the way through the second verse, I just forgot all the rest of the words. But then a week later, when I had my next show, I had I had honed it in and
Gotcha.
I had it locked in, performed it. So I guess the answer is 2 weeks.
Okay, hey, that's
It takes 2 weeks to figure it out.
Very learned method right there.
Yeah.
Do you make like show versions of your tracks, or do you just like mute the vocals out and just like do it as that?
I have done show versions of tracks, but at the moment I'm pulling like the main vocals out and just letting like the ad libs and the backup vocals go while I perform on top of it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm always just, for people who like get to do the whole process themselves, that's always like one thing in the back of my head where I'm like, do people still do that?
Yeah.
But I imagine you've definitely got your own process at this point. And let's go ahead and let's talk about some of your music now. So I was checking it out. You've got music going back to like 2021 on Spotify. And it's a fair amount of music.
Yeah.
Like it's actually, and for some reason my notes decided to run away from me here. Oh no, they didn't even update. So mind this while I pull this up here. And I'll just pretend it's right there. And I mean, it's interesting. You have a very unique sound. It's like it's a little loose, it's a little dissonant, but it's very definitive. And what I think is really interesting is that your vocal presence in the track is really, there's like a reality to it. There's like this attention to the way that you tend to present your voice in your music is really outstanding. And I think it's really an interesting approach.
Thank you.
And like I was listening to your most recent track, Full Court Lob, which came out earlier this month. Yeah.
Out now.
Yeah. And I guess in the realm of this, it would have been last month because this will come out right in the first week of next month. But in the realm of now, it just recently came out. And it's really cool. Like, I love the like explosive percussive elements. It's like that just my ear kind of leans towards those things. And I like how in the second half, it like starts to fall apart and then it acts like it's going to get bigger. And then it keeps kind of insinuating that there's going to be this like rising moment. And then it just kind of goes straight into what was happening before.
Yeah.
But by the time it gets back to that, it feels so like new and comfortable at the same time.
Yeah.
And I usually do this bit where I pick out a track that I really enjoyed and then I go and break down. But that was actually the one I enjoyed. So,
awesome.
That kind of sums it up a little quicker than usual. But it is a really cool track.
Thank you.
But I am curious to know, what are some of your favorite songs to perform?
Definitely that one. That one has been, that's the first single off of an album I'm working on. And I do think that, I feel like I can let out a lot of energy in that song. It's very therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
Performing that song. That one's definitely a favorite of mine. I really like performing my song Primary Colors, which is the complete flip side of that song.
Yeah, very much so.
Because that one is also, it's about my lovely partner. And so it's very chill. I get to get in my singing bag a little bit more. And I think it's, I'm less like flailing around energetically and a lot more just within myself, very calm.
Now, does that usually show up like mid-set? Do you open with that? Like, where do you usually place that?
That one's towards the end of the set. I sort of wind the set down with that, and then I jump into Full Court Lob.
Gotcha. Okay.
Finish it off loud. There's also the first track of my set, of my typical set. It's called Tire Iron, another unreleased song that will also be on the album I'm dropping. Yeah. That one very loud and very grungy and ugly.
Gotcha.
And it gets my energy right for the rest of the show.
Oh yeah. And live, do you play with a guitar?
I don't. I would love to get to a point where I could either where I do have a band playing with me, or that I could play my instruments along with at least some of the songs, but I'm not. That's a work in progress.
No, I definitely understand that. And I guess, do you have any other like core instruments that you use, or is it mainly just like production on the computer and guitar at the moment?
It's mostly that, but I also do play bass.
Okay. Me too.
Hell yeah. I play bass in a band called Sooth and the Sweet Souls.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Ronald Records, like house band.
Hell yeah. Shout out Sooth.
Yeah. So I play bass for them, but it's mostly just those two, and I can work my way around a keyboard.
Yeah.
But
no, I get that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then I guess let's take a moment now and let's talk about some new music that you're working on.
Yes.
And I guess we'll kind of focus on this album you're putting together.
Mm-hmm.
What can we look forward to as far as like, like stylistic differences or like approaches? How are you going about putting it together?
I would say it's definitely a lot more grungy and a lot more punk influence in it. I definitely I'm trying to get more of a live sounding drum feel with it, on some of the songs at least. Topic wise, I'm definitely I'm being a lot more vulnerable, and I think I'm trying to be a lot more candid with how I feel and with like my political opinions and my opinions on the world, because I think in the past I tuck a lot of the way that I feel into deeply steeped metaphor.
Gotcha.
And I think there is a lot of benefit to that, and I think you can write a lot of cool things that way, but I think there's also something to be said about just saying what you mean to say directly. And so it's still a lot of hip hop rap influence, but also a lot of grungier punk influence, some R&B stuff.
Okay, hell yeah.
I'm singing some more on it than some of my past stuff too.
Gotcha. Well, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And I guess it's cool that you're still trying to, because you said before, like when you decided to take music seriously again, that you had experienced something similar where you were trying to unpack and express a lot more of yourself. So it's cool to see that you're still kind of walking that path and trying to experience that through even taking it a step further and peeling back more layers.
Definitely. Yeah. To me, writing music that's where I can be most honest with myself and with other people. And it's just easiest for me to communicate that way. And so it's as I'm getting older and as I'm looking at myself more and saying, hey, why am I avoiding these things? Why am I acting this way? It's just I continue to peel the layers of the onion back, and it's got to be a lot of honesty and authenticity with yourself.
Yeah.
To find out what's going on. And I'm just trying to get to the core of myself and trying to be the happiest I can be and trying to be the best person for the world that I can be.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. I definitely dig that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now let's take a moment and let's zoom out. Let's kind of look at music as a whole. What are some of the things about either just new music, or at the very least music that's new to you that you've recently experienced that you enjoy and you're finding inspiration in?
I think I've been listening to the new Mavi album.
Oh yeah.
A lot. I think I love all of his music because he is very well spoken, and he's definitely a poet with the way that he writes. But I think I've noticed as he's gotten older and as he's matured in his music, I feel like he's directly speaking to himself a lot more than steeping certain things in metaphors. And I think that's really cool. And that's what I'm trying to do.
You're trying to do as well.
Yeah. And I think production wise, he's stepping out of the box because he got pretty big off of his first album, Let the Sun Talk, and he's definitely stepping outside of the box that I think a lot of people sort of packed him into with that first album, going into his second album and now his third official album. He's rapping and singing on a lot of very cool, very weird beats, and I don't know, I think that's very inspiring.
Oh yeah.
And also a band that I adore, Standing on the Corner. I've been listening to their album Red Burns a lot. It's very weird. A big melting pot of genres and styles. A lot of spoken word, punk influence.
Gotcha.
Cool indie and R&B stuff. It's just a really cool, just melting pot of ideas and topics and songwriting structure.
Oh yeah, well, I have not heard of them, so I'm excited to check that out now.
I would definitely check it out. Yeah, their self-titled album is, I would say, a lot easier to step into as a listener because it's a lot more
palatable.
A lot more palatable and more like traditional song structure. Whereas Redburn's is on all streaming platforms. It's released as side X and side Y, which are like 2 30+ minute tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's broken down, it's like 20+ different songs and skits, and it's very jazzy, very weird, and yeah, it's really cool. I would definitely recommend checking it out.
No, I think I'm gonna start with that one first. Anyways, I love it.
Awesome,
super interesting.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. All right, and then before we get into the next portion, this next question is probably the densest question in the interview.
Okay,
but we've talked a lot about your experience with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and the music one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
It provides me a reflection of myself, and it's just annotations of myself at different points in my life. And there's a lot of going back and looking at some of my previous songs, released or unreleased, when I've been in past relationships, or just looking at past situations I've been in, and just seeing like, oh, I didn't know how to like look at myself and say I'm unhappy, I feel this way, that way. But listening to the song a year removed from originally writing it, I can look at it and say, oh, this was how I was trying to talk to myself, how I was trying to communicate to myself that I am falling into these unhealthy tendencies, or that I'm not aligning with the person I want to be. And I think it's just a way for me to look back at myself and recognize a lot of patterns that I fall into and a lot of habits that I perpetuate in my own life.
Interesting.
And it allows me to look at those, reflect, and grow and write new songs for me a year from now, 2 years from now, to look back on and do the same exact thing.
That's an interesting perspective on it. And I'm trying to formulate a question here because I have one in my head. I just don't know how to quite put it into words. I guess when you look at music from the past, I guess like really it kind of depends on where the line was, where you decided you wanted to move towards stuff that kind of like reflects more of a direct message. Would you say that because it seems like you're trying to grow, like you're looking, like you said, at the patterns and things like that. In the past, would you only make music to kind of process those types of emotions, or like was that just like what ended up coming out?
I think it was definitely, I was not being honest with myself a lot in the past. And so I think it was a way that I was trying to process those things, and it just, I don't know, it was just like subconsciously my body was just trying to like spit these things out so that I could look at them and like sit with them. But consciously, actively, I was just, I'm listening to this kind of music right now. I want to make a song that is inspired by that.
Oh, okay.
Because I was doing a lot of refusing to look at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And I think that also led me to sort of make a lot of music that was a bit contrived of its inspirations, which now I look back on and with a bit of a sour taste, but also respecting the fact that I was also pretty fresh at making music, because when I started taking it super, super seriously was like 2019, 2020. So I've really only been making music under the project of JKL, aka Yellow, for like 4 years now.
Yeah.
And I hope that answered your question.
No, it was a very open-ended question, and you very much did. I appreciate you kind of going through that with me, because like I said, your original answer was just it's one I haven't really gotten before, so I kind of just wanted to unpack that a little bit. So thank you for going through that.
Of course.
But now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions.
I love it.
Yeah, and for these, the sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Beautiful.
This first one is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with?
To be alive.
How would you want to work with them?
Oh, I'm just going to say the very first thing that comes to mind, and that's D'Angelo.
Okay.
I think it would be really cool to have a song where I'm on it vocally with D'Angelo, but he's an incredible singer.
Yeah.
And I try my best. But I think, if I'm being super honest, I love honesty, apparently. I think it would be cool to produce a song for D'Angelo, work with him. Because I think he, specifically Voodoo, which is one of my favorite albums of all time, and Questlove is drumming on that whole project. He already has a super swung, drunk drum style. And I think, I don't play drums, but I produce them, and I love that super swung, drunk cadence.
Yeah.
And I think, and that would be a lot of fun to produce something with him.
Hell yeah, that would be rad.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Ooh, cool artist. I have connected with them a little bit. I just played a show with them, but someone that it would be cool to make a song with. It's a artist called Spacey Nicks. Sort of another self-produced artist. I love the self-produced artists. Cool, weird bedroom R&B indie type stuff. Weird. I love weird self-produced.
Well, you're definitely
sort of rough around the edges. Like,
you're definitely in the right place for that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's like my favorite kind of. It's my favorite style of art because it is very authentic. I feel like that's it's a great way to see someone for who they are, because when it's all coming out of them, that is, I don't know, it's just 100% who they are. It's very representative of what's going on in their head.
Yeah. When I did an interview with, who's it? Miss L. Shout out Miss L. She said that music is the window to the soul. And I like, for some reason, that line has just kind of stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
Because it's like, as soon as she said it, I was like, yes. Like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Or no, I think she said music is the voice of the soul. There we go. I might have mentioned that already. But like, just that concept of like, it's how the inner part of you kind of escapes in its own way, in a way that is a little harder to mask.
Absolutely.
It's always just kind of, it's just something that my head has kept turning over and over. So
that's a really good quote, because it's very true. I think music, when it is made in earnesty, is very much just like the deepest outpouring of what's inside of you.
Yeah.
And I think that can be said about really any medium too. If painting is what speaks to them, I think that is definitely a way to pour out your soul into a painting.
Yeah.
Or into a poem or into a story.
Really just any art. I think that's really like, that's probably the more truer definition of art.
Yeah.
Is just like the way of expressing oneself through a medium that is not just you being you. But it's a way of like finding, because like I can't even remember who said this now, but one time somebody their answer was that like music for them gave them an opportunity to have a voice. They're very reserved. They're very quiet. But when they got on stage and they were able to perform their music, they got to be energetic and they got to be loud, and everybody was like, we had no idea you were like that. And they were like, well, I've always been this way. It's just I had no way to explain it. I had no way to share it with you until now. Yeah. And so but I feel like we're going to tangent forever. So we're going to cycle back to the hypothetical questions here. And for this next one, sky's the limits. The questions are like I said before, I butchered that. Sorry. I really got off in that tangent here.
It's okay.
If you could perform anywhere in the world and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, it was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. And it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
It's a really good question. I'm going to leave it a little ambiguous. I think playing a show like deep in the forest with that Pacific Northwest rain, just it's like super dark and gray and rainy out, just in the middle of the forest, no open, no clearing area for people to hang out and sit, just trees and shrubbery all over the place. I think that would be it would be a weird place to do it, and it would be logistically hard with the technology that's
stuff is waterproof nowadays, you know what I mean? Like maybe have a little canopy over like a generator, but you know, like
there you go.
Like mathematically it's not impossible. All acoustic instruments would work for sure.
That's true.
Yeah, just get like a $50 acoustic guitar.
Perfect.
Then you don't feel bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah, then it'll be fine.
Yeah, pull a Hendrix, light it on fire at the end. It's a whole art piece in and of itself.
There you go.
Oh yeah. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you like an album from?
Oh, that's a good question. You got a lot of good questions. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Man, I think it would be cool to see if Prince was like coming up as an artist now.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool to see what artists he would like be collaborating with, and stylistically how his stuff would be different. But I think Prince would, I think he would put together a really cool album coming from the modern perspective if he was like coming up now. Yeah.
That's actually a really cool spin on that question.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely gotten Prince before, but like nobody's ever been like Prince, but if he were young Prince now.
Yeah.
Like that's a really fun take on that. I appreciate that answer a lot. Thank you. Oh yeah. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and March?
Now in March, at least one more single from an album I'm working on. I just got the art for it is being worked on, and between now and then we should be getting an album.
Hell yeah.
Full Court Lob is out now, first single off the album. And I'm working on getting some more shows, and if anybody watching would like to play a show with me, I'm very open. I would love to play more shows in the Portland area. So just a lot more music and a lot more music and a lot more music.
Well, definitely looking forward to all of that. For this next one, go and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me on all social medias at JKL, aka YLLW, and then all streaming platforms, JKL space, aka space, YLLW, period.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
Shout out to Sooth and the Sweet Souls, my wonderful band. Shout out to Spacey Nick, shout out to Sergeant Pep, Shelby Natasha, Huey Mantra, a cool artist I work with, Alex David, a cool artist I've worked with, A Gabe, featured on one of my songs. Tulo, my partner, lovely singer, lovely songwriter. Shout out to one of my other side projects, I5. Go listen to that. And shout out to you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And with that being said, we've got one last question to go.
Okay.
But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Cool.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Okay.
But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
I think I did already talk about it, but Red Burns by Standing on the Corner.
Okay.
It is probably one of the coolest musical things I've heard ever. And I really love it. And I think it's weird. And I think it has there is so much to digest that you can listen to it all the time and constantly be pulling something new out of it. And in turn with that, I want to say anything by Slauson Malone.
Okay.
He's one of the founding members of Standing on the Corner. All of his solo music, very similar. You can just constantly listen to it, and you are constantly pulling something new out of it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's rad wreck, and I'm totally fine with you doubling down on it because that means it'll be up here when I get to check it out later. All right, but with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get up on out of here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm JKL, aka Yellow.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.